Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Robin Francis with Autodesk to lead the conversation.
All right. My name is Robin Francis. I work for a company called Autodesk. You probably may never have heard of that, but you have heard of AutoCAD, which is our flagship product we've had for over 30 years. But in addition to AutoCAD, we also have fantastic products that are in the 100 plus range, meaning we have products that are for designed professionals, but we also have apps that are for design newbies like Sketchbook Pro and so on and so forth. So we undertook some large stuff last year. So I want to be able to do a quick case study for you so you can see where the patterns are, where you could recreate it at your company. We'll talk about why it's important, we'll talk about what it is, and then we'll get into how you actually do it. So why web content strategy? So we've been talking about the importance of content throughout this entire session. It's been noted over and over and over again, but at the end of the day, content, that's your commodity on the web. That's what you trade, that's what you sell, that's what you give away for free. That's how you teach and inform people. So if that's effectively your customer service, no matter where they are in the purchase cycle, then you want to pay attention to it for many different reasons. So great content helps your visitors become prospects, your prospects become customers, and your customers become loyal fans for the long haul. But it doesn't work if your content's confusing or annoying or fragmented or they can't find it. It just doesn't work. And if you think, so this is a study that was done 2 years ago, but that the average customer is 57% of the way done with their decision-making process before they engage sales. That means that in that time frame, they're engaging with your content, other people's content, what they're saying about what you have, who you are, and making a decision whether or not they should interact with you or transact with you. So what can you get back from content strategy? You can reduce help calls to your call centers. You can lower product returns and try and lessen revenue loss by being very upfront, and then people know exactly what they're getting from your products and from your site. It's critical to nurture and personalization at scale. So this is I'm not sure how many companies are doing nurture marketing or any personalization. We got some in the back. Any personalization of content? Okay, in the back, so you're ahead of the curve. You're going to start hearing about this more and more over time. So personalizing content to what you know about the people coming into your website. Having content that is scalable, that's broken out into chunks, that's manageable is going to be really important and really critical to making that successful and not creepy. It'll help you lower your content creation costs, syndication and localization costs, especially if you're doing reusable content. And reusable content's necessary and helpful for responsive design. So mobile, of course, all right, the session's made it very clear to me, behind the ball, 8 ball on mobile, but definitely have a chance to catch up. It sounds like a lot of us are figuring out what makes sense. And reusable content's gonna be a big piece of that. If Google explicitly says, and I have the link in there so you can have the deck, that a poor mobile user experience may lose rankings, your content's going to be very important. Mobile has a very different intent, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. So what exactly is web content strategy? I think the easy part to say is it's a lot like your SEO strategy, except that you're just focusing primarily on not only the content, but how it works with SEO. Does anyone know this lady? Yes, that's Christina Halverson. She is web content strategy goddess. I've been lucky enough to be able to work with her. She wrote Content Strategy for the Web, which is in its 2nd edition, and she's amazing. So she laid it out plain and simple exactly what content strategy is. And content strategy is taking your people, those are your internal stakeholders, and the people that are actually creating and putting the content live, and pairing that with the actual content, the substance, what it is, what's the structure of it, where does it live, and having it all rally around a core strategy. We can all rally around a strategy that makes sense. And this allows you to be able to say, hey, does this gut check with what our strategy is about and is trying to achieve? If you haven't picked up that book, it's actually a really great book, Content Strategy for the Web. So great, okay, you get why it's important. How do you actually do it? So here's the case study I was talking about. Last year, Autodesk embarked on a monster project, starting with a partial move to a new CMS. We also redesigned our brand from the ground up, and it looks pretty damn cool if you ask me. So then, whenever you move to a CMS, what do people say to do? We have to do a site redesign at the same time. Yay! Not to mention, then now we're looking at our brand, we're looking at our site, we're looking at our CMS. Now we have to look at our global site strategy and say, are we in the right markets? Are we doing the right things for what people want? And finally, just to make that even better, we did it all at the same time that we do our normal annual global launch, which is a mass update of our content to coincide with when our software releases for the new year. Has anybody done 2 or more of those things at any one time? Can I see your hands? You have some over here. Has anybody done all 5? No. Oh, you have? Please come see me after, because I want to buy you a drink. I decided that while the hood was open, me and my team, as well as some my amazing web marketing counterparts, decided that we needed to look into content strategy. What does that look like? Let's run a pilot, let's figure it out. So here's where you start, and some of this is going to feel very comfortable, which is actually a good thing because you're already doing it with your search strategy. One is you're going to collaborate. You're going to collaborate with those that own your business units in the marketing team, as well as the business unit stakeholders, because you have to figure out what the business wants. In our case, I'm going to be talking about our product centers primarily, those 130 products, and moving them over to the new CMS. What was important was learn about the product, try, buy. In some cases it's community, in some cases it's KPIs. In addition, I would say you may have other business goals that are important, like maybe you want to create an action that drives someone into a dealership. Maybe you want to create an action where they're just downloading a certain white paper. And I think that these are the kind of KPIs you need to know from the business that are important. You're also going to want to identify what your customers want from those pages. Super important. What are their purposes of visit? I credit our design team. They're amazing for bringing in scenario-focused engineering. It's a process that's done at Apple, it's done at Microsoft, and the tenets are that you know what the customer and the business want, you make it happen, you test, iterate, test, iterate, test, iterate. And this is critical to being able to do that. So once you know what those are, then you can come up with a strategy and layer on SEO. So for our product centers, we have 130 products. How do you create sizes that make sense for 130 products? Something as large as AutoCAD, which is, generates a lot of revenue, all the way to something that's a mobile app that's $2. How do you make a product center that fits both of them? Search opportunity. So you're going to want to look at your non-branded search opportunity, and we looked at that for our features pages to be able to say, our features pages either grow or contract based on the amount of features, benefits are available for the user. And if their number one reason for coming here is to learn, try and buy, that's going to be helpful for them in their purchase, in their decision-making cycle. Now, you want to think about mobile. So for those of you who do have a separate site, this is going to add on an additional layer. If you have a single site that's rendering both, then you're just going to want to think about the user intent of mobile. It's very, very different, but not difficult to find out. So thankfully, I did not realize Bright Edge was giving us some of that data, so I'm very excited to get back and play and take a look. Here's where you're going to want to make best friends with your design team. They are amazing, and they know exactly what goes on the page. What you're bringing to the table is the search piece and the content piece. So yes, you're going to set H tags. Yes, you're going to talk about word count minimums. But you're also going to talk about information architecture. Where does this content live? What makes sense for it to link off to? What are the anomalies? What are those product centers that are really small and don't have a lot of features but have weird quirks, like 60 pages worth of content that you have to keep because it's important to understanding that product? So you have to bring those anomalies to the table, talk about it, and be able to infuse them into the design. If you can, prototype with real content, meaning get into a staging environment, use real content, pick one center, and see how it works. What's going to break? What's going to break when you localize and get into double byte characters? And then, again, scenario-focused engineering, test, iterate, test, iterate. You're going to learn so much about what your customers actually want and need. Once you have these beautiful pictures, go out and tell your business units, your analysts, anyone who this is important to, exactly what you're doing. Show them the wireframe. Show them why you have a non-branded keyword in that second line. Show them why there's overview in there. Show them why their video is below the intro text. Explain to them the reasons why these decisions were made and how they're helpful for the customers that are coming in. And again, this is where you got check against your original strategy. They're coming in to learn, try, buy. So here, under our features, this is where you're able to grow. This is where we're able to have additional pages to rank in search and get you more visibility. Now, but as you're evangelizing, those pages aren't live. So there's teams in the background that are actually pushing and creating the templates. So you're going to want to work with development early and often. Prototype with real content like we talked about before. If you're using an agile process, you want to get SEO and content needs in the user acceptance criteria. If they're not there, your developers are not going to develop it. So get them in there, make sure not only developers understand it, but make sure QA understands it. So that when they are QAing, they would use the same tools that you would expect them to use, and they understand the desired functionality. This will alleviate the, oh my God, we robots.txt, our staging server, but pushed it live once it went live. Why are my pages not showing up? Well, you just told Google that they're not there, and they'll not look at them. So those kind of conversations will 86 that. And then, of course, your systems team. So if you're moving content, this is actually a big, gnarly pain. But you have to do it because at the end of the day, if you don't redirect your old SEO equity link-rich URLs to the new ones, then you're going to have a hard time coming back. So you want to make sure you work with the systems team, one-to-one mapping everywhere you can. Now, this is a lot, and I'll make sure that the decks are available for sure, but this is your process. The only thing you're layering in is content. And for those who aren't close to the content creation piece, this is what it looks like. And this is from our case study, close to what we do with our global launch pretty much every quarter. So you have a kickoff where you bring everybody in to talk about what's going to go down. It then goes to the SEO team, they get terms. That copy deck gets handed off to the partner who's actually going to create the content. They create the content. Then they kick it back to the SEO and editorial team to make sure they didn't take out the optimization we put in when we handed it to them. Right? The partner looks at it again. You argue back and forth. You settle on what changes you're going to make. And then you implement those particular changes. Mind you, that little step between copy creation and change implementation can take a really long time. So you want to build in the time for that. Goes to production, goes to preview, legal has to look at it, and then that's usually when you could put in your crosslinks. For those of you who do localization, it can take a long time, right? Sometimes you have to have your content ready 6 to 8 weeks before it's going to go live, just so you can get it localized in different areas. So you're going to want somebody scheduling this. And then, of course, your go live and promoting through social, PR, and external link development post-launch. This is what it looks like. Parts of this should feel really familiar because you're doing it already. The piece that's coming in is this is the actual gathering of the content that needs to go live. Now, as that gathering's happening, your copy decks should go out saying, this is what the URL build is going to look like. Here's your title tags. When I talked about in the beginning, before you hand off your copy decks, this information is in there. You should make it very easy for whoever's creating your content to already have the optimization good to go. Meta descriptions, title tags, and then ensure when it comes back it didn't get taken out. If you can put in an SEO review, it's hard to do sometimes, but I think that if you're working with the people that are involved in the process, that's possible. And then ensure that your web editorial team knows the SEO basics so that they don't inadvertently take it out either. And then work with web production to get the content up the way that you designed it. And then this, of course, these are the moz.com search engine ranking factors, so I thought I'd put that up there just to reinforce some of the things you're going to want to focus on. All right. I mentioned translation, and it's interesting that something as complicated and long-standing as translation and localization can be put into 3. So yeah, it's definitely not representative of how the process is. But you have an opportunity here to make your SEO content optimization that you do in English stick as it goes through to different languages. And that means you have to do key phrase research in your local language. If you aren't able to do it or you don't have internal stakeholders, find a vendor. They're going to be your best friend. There is no translation between the word 3D from English to Japanese, right? So we're a 3D design software company. So you're going to see a lot of English words in non-English characters as well as also in other languages because that's just the nature of it. But you want to have the right translation and you want to make sure there's demand for it. Native speakers, again, gut checking, and then local link building once it goes live. And then once it does go live, you want to syndicate the right content, and not everything is the right content. It should be useful, helpful, interesting. The last thing I'm going to do is say, hey, guys on the social team, can you go on ahead and just push out my regular old trial? Nobody cares. You have to make it very interesting and very useful for folks. And once you do that, then you'll be able to get some of the link juice in return. I mentioned earlier that our OEX director brought scenario-focused engineering to Autodesk, which was very exciting. And so the test, iterate part has become part of our culture. I highly suggest that you try it. A/B testing, multivariate testing. It'll help you see if your content is confusing to the end user or if it's not allowing you to convert. And then run it, get the data, and show people what happens. So this is a great site that you can participate as well called Which Test Won. And last year we were able to win, and this is our old design, win a silver ribbon for our navigation in B2B, which was exciting because you're basically saying, hey, I want to know if this works or if this works. And in this case, it was whether or not Industries was resonating with our software audience. Then tell them how it went. You've gone through this whole process. You've worked with every stakeholder known to man. Make sure after it goes live, you do a deep dive and figure it out. So we were able to pleasantly see that 30 days, 60 days after launch, we're bringing in 61% of traffic to our product centers, which is insane. And it's based on that initial web content strategy of we're going to expand in this one features area where it's appropriate, and we're going to get more pages ranked. And then it galvanizes people. Then people are like, yes, I absolutely want to do that again. And you can do web content strategy on something as small as a few words and something as big as thousands of pages. So for the long-term governance, you can't just push it live and ignore it. Link build, we all know this. Review for updates, for expired content, for old content, irrelevant content. Review your structure. Enable reuse where you can, so break your content down into patterns that make sense. If you can reuse your legal text, reuse it. Why do you have to have it custom on every single page? And then you're going to want to put all of this into playbooks, right? So that content owners are identified, process guidelines for maintenance, end-of-life plans, they're all available for future use. So it's totally doable, even when when the world is stacked against you and you have 5 major projects. But there's something beautiful that happens when you do take a chance. And as we know, content is now driving our lives, and it's time to get to know it and spread a little love. So thank you guys for listening to me. I appreciate it. And I will pass it off to Jamie.